the following account is entirely true. It is documented in the Forensic Archives of New South Wales. Part 1. The Quiet on Aberglasslyn Road. The date was November 6, 2000. The setting was an unassuming, tin-roofed cottage in Rutherford, a quiet suburb of Maitland, Australia. The weather was warming up as the southern hemisphere moved towards summer. It was a normal Monday evening for most, but inside that cottage the air was entirely still. Living there was a 33-year-old man named John Price. His friends called him Pricey. He was a hard-working man, a father, well-liked at the local meatworks where he had spent years holding down a steady job. He was known for his easygoing nature, but for the past few weeks, John Price had been living in a state of quiet, mounting dread. He had recently ended a turbulent, deeply unstable relationship with a woman named Catherine Knight. Catherine was 44 years old. To the outside world, she could be intense, but she held a job at the same local abattoir, working as a meat cutter. She was exceptionally skilled with knives. John had finally decided he could no longer live with her erratic, volatile behavior. He had asked her to leave. He had even taken out a restraining order against her because something in her eyes had shifted. He told his co-workers at the meatworks a chilling phrase just days prior. "If I don't show up for work, she's killed me." On this particular night, John thought he was safe. The house was locked. The lights were out. He climbed into bed, falling into a deep, heavy sleep. He did not hear the back door lock click open. Part 2. The Shadow in the Hallway. Catherine Knight had not left. She had been watching the house. She possessed a set of keys that John didn't know she had kept. At approximately 1 a.m., she stepped through the back door, visualized the darkness of that hallway, the absolute silence of a suburban night, broken only by the faint rhythmic sound of John's breathing from the bedroom. Catherine did not rush. She moved with a terrifying, deliberate calmness. She was a professional butcher. She understood anatomy, precision, and the weight of steel. She had brought her work tools with her, a collection of professional-grade boning knives, skinning knives, and a sharpening steel. She walked into the kitchen. She took off her clothes, folding them neatly, leaving herself completely naked except for a pair of shoes. She did this to ensure her clothes would not get ruined, and to allow herself maximum mobility, she picked up a butcher knife. She walked slowly down the carpeted hallway toward the master bedroom. Every floorboard that didn't creak was a step closer to John's bed. She stood over him in the pitch black, listening to him breathe. Then she raised the blade. Part 3. The Struggle in the Dark. The first plunge of the knife shattered the silence. John Price awoke instantly into a living nightmare. There was no light. There was only blinding pain, and the silhouette of a woman standing over him, raining down blows with a heavy blade. But John was a strong man. The human body, fueled by pure adrenaline, fights fiercely to survive. He managed to roll out of the bed, throwing his hands up to deflect the incoming strikes. The knife sliced through his fingers, his palms, his forearms. The bedroom became a chaotic, bloody arena in total darkness. John managed to stumble out of the bedroom and into the hallway, trying desperately to reach the front door, but Catherine was relentless. She didn't scream. She didn't yell. She just followed him, striking again and again and again. John reached the front door. His hands, slick with his own blood, fumbled frantically with the deadbolt. He managed to turn it. He opened the door and stumbled out onto the front porch, collapsing into the cool night air. He tried to cry out for help, but the wounds to his chest had punctured his lungs. Only a wet gasp came out. Before he could crawl down the steps, Catherine dragged him back inside the house. The door clicked shut. The neighborhood remained completely asleep, unaware that a man had just lost his final battle for life on his own front porch. John Price died in the hallway. He had been stabbed a total of 37 times, many of the wounds penetrating his vital organs. But for Catherine Knight, the murder was only the prologue. Part 4. The Abattoir in the Kitchen. What happened over the next 6 hours is what elevates this story into the realm of pure, diabolical horror. Catherine Knight did not flee. She did not panic. Instead, she turned on the bright, fluorescent lights of the house. She fetched her professional sharpening steel and her butcher knives. She treated the home of John Price exactly like the slaughterhouse where she worked. With horrific composure and clinical expertise, she began to skin John's body. Because of her professional training, she did it so precisely that she managed to remove the skin in one continuous, intact piece. When she was finished, she took a meat hook. She drove it through the top of the living room door frame, and she hung the skin from it, suspended in the middle of the room like a grim tapestry. Next, she moved the remains into the kitchen. She lit the stove, She took a large stainless steel soup pot and filled it with water. She then decapitated John Price and placed his head into the pot on the stove, turning up the heat to boil it. She sliced portions of meat from his body. She prepared vegetables, potatoes, carrots, and onions. She cooked the meat alongside the vegetables, preparing a traditional roast dinner. She set the dining room table. She used the fine china. She placed 2 place cards on the plates. One had the name of John's adult son on it. The other had the name of his adult daughter. Beside each plate, she served a portion of the cooked human flesh, complete with a side of vegetables and gravy. She intended for his children to find this table when they came looking for their father the next day. Part 5. The Morning Light. At 7 a.m., John's neighbor noticed that his car was still in the driveway. John was never late for work. His co-worker also noticed his absence and grew deeply unsettled, remembering John's warning from days before. The co-worker called the local police. At approximately 8 a.m., a lone police officer arrived at the cottage on Aberglaslyn Road. He walked up the steps, noticing faint dark smears on the front porch that looked like dried blood. He knocked. No answer. He tried the handle. The door was unlocked. He pushed it open, stepping into the quiet house. The first thing the officer noticed was the smell, the heavy, sweet scent of a cooked Sunday roast mixed with the metallic tang of copper. He took 3 steps into the living room. His eyes adjusted to the dim light, and he froze. Hanging from the door frame directly in front of him was the skin of John Price, gently swaying in the draft from the front door. The officer looked toward the kitchen. On the stove, the pot was still bubbling. Catherine Knight was found in the master bedroom. She had taken a massive dose of prescription pills in an attempt to sleep or escape the consequences of her actions. She was semi-conscious but alive. The sentence, Catherine Knight became the first woman in Australian history to be sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Her files are stamped with the order that she is never to be released. The judge who sentenced her remarked that the details of the crime were so deeply perverse and cruel that they defied human comprehension. Think about the silence of that house in the early morning hours. Think about the meticulousness it takes to set a table, to peel vegetables, and to tend a stove while the owner of the house is scattered across the kitchen. The real horror isn't the knife. It is the cold, calculated mind holding it, operating under the cover of a quiet, ordinary night.